Hello aspirants, myself Rasool, Faculty of History. In this session, we are going to discuss optional history paper 1 and paper 2. In fact, we are going to learn first, we are going to have some sort of discussion, including the students, right? First paper, once we're done with first paper, so after the break, we are going to have second paper. Right? So when it comes to history optional, for say any optional which has got 500 marks, including optional history which has got 500 marks, we have totally two papers. Now we were discussing paper 1. So paper 1, which consists of 250 marks. Right? So when we understand the instructions in paper 1, there are 8 questions divided into 2 sections and printed both Hindi and English. Candidate has to attempt 5 questions. Out of 8 questions, the aspirants shall write 5 questions. Clear? This is first instruction you shall keep in mind while you're writing an answer, especially optional history. When it comes to out of 5 questions, like out of 8 questions, 5 questions to be written, and another instruction which we found, question numbers 1 and 5 are compulsory to be written. So question number 1 and question number 5. Say, what is the significance of question number 1, question number 5? We are going to learn. Now with this background, start with the first section A. As we referred in instructions, we have totally 2 sections, section A and section B. Section A and section B. So first we'll start with section A. First question in section A. Identify the following places marked on the map supplied to you and write a short note of the following places marked on the map as question come answer booklet. Locational hints for each of the places marked on the map that are given below. So we have totally what we call, say, we have totally 20 sites. So when you go through the map and all, so we have the site number 1, prehistoric site, area of petroglyphs, Neolithic site, Harappan site, Buddhist monastery, Chalcolithic site, Neo-Chalcolithic site, megalithic site with rock art, and one of the Mahajanapadas capitals where Buddha performed miracle. A Shravasti miracle we call it. Besides, we have the other important sites. Hominids fossil find site, major rock edict of Ashoka, ancient trade center, stone inscription recording land grants with tax exemptions, Shiva temples named after family relationships, place of art related to inscription, place of inscription of 3 languages, temple site where 3 styles of temple architecture are found, Jain pilgrimage site, Shiva temple of Guptan period, megalithic monumental burial site. Let me tell you, first question, section A, first question, where we can get out of marks. Reason being, on one hand, you come across the respective sites, names of these sites. On the other hand, you also come across their locations. The only thing is, you have to write 2 to 3 lines, if possible, the 4 lines, not more than that. You'll be given out of marks. So section A, first question, where an aspirant can go out of marks, because marks can't be reduced here. So easiest what we call, say, question, and it's quite interesting. Instructions lo bhanga we have learned that is question number 1 and question number 5. Compulsory you have to write these 2 questions out of 8 questions. So when it comes to prehistoric site, in fact, we generally discuss in classes based on script, entire history broadly divided into what do we call, say, 2, that is prehistoric, and in fact 3. So prehistoric age, historic age and proto-historic age. Now based on tool making technology, the entire history, to be specific, prehistory got classified into 5. So Paleolithic followed by Mesolithic, Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, Chalcolithic, and Megalithic. Now, one of these sites to be written, so prehistoric site. The second one, area of petroglyphs. Third one, Neolithic site. So already which was located on map, and Harappan site, and you can easily write so 2 to 3 lines on Harappan site, even Neolithic site. So the significance of Neolithic site, we found some sort of agricultural production, you call it, and wheel-made pottery. So 1 or 2 lines you can easily frame. Followed by Buddhist monastery, Chalcolithic site, and Neo-Chalcolithic sites. Neo-Chalcolithic site are those sites which have, you also call it as multicultural site, Neo-Chalcolithic sites. So the sites which we found, the features of Neolithic, what we call say elements and Chalcolithic elements, and megalithic site with rock art, and one of the Mahajanapadas, the capital where Buddha, believed to be, say, made miracle. Shravasti Chamatkar, as I was telling them. So my point is, the first question where you can go for out of marks. The maximum marks you can score in first question of section A. So for example, so temple site where 3 styles of temple architecture are found, everyone knows, that is Pattadakal. Pattadakal, where we found temple complex belong to Badami Chalukyans. Chalukyans of Badami, who ruled over Deccan in post-Guptan age, had 2 capitals, Badami, administrative capital, and Pattadakal, cultural capital. The significance of Pattadakal temple complex, in fact, got recognition by UNESCO, where we found 3 styles, that is Nagara style temples, Vesara style temples, and Dravidian temples. You can easily frame out it, say 2 to 3 lines. So we have the event map we have it. So second question, when it comes to second question, section A, second question, we found what we call say 3 questions in a three, what to say, in second question we found the 3 options. The first question, Harappan art contributes to our understanding of their aesthetic sensibilities in addition to spiritual and ritualistic life. So the question has got 2 parts. The question has got 2 parts. The first part, you have to write spiritual and ritualist, say spiritual life and ritualistic life. How? By referring Harappan art forms. When I say Harappan art forms, we have, so during excavations, archaeologists discovered so many what we call say materials. Maybe from Lothal, Kalibangan, Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Chanhu-daro. So we have seals, we have statues, we have utensils. So these are the elements that can be framed under art. How the excavated materials from different sites of Indus Valley civilization helps us in understanding the spiritual life of Harappans and even the ritualistic nature of Harappans. The question is very easy and direct question. So the question has got 2 parts. On one hand, you have to write excavations under the tag called art. On the other hand, spiritual and ritualistic life. So option, say B, section A, second question B, discuss different types of megalithic burial practices. This is another direct question. Megalithic burial practices, which we generally discuss during prehistoric cultures. Just now we referred. So based on tool making technology, entire prehistoric cultures say broadly divided into 5 categories: Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, Chalcolithic, and Megalithic. So when it comes to megalithic, we found megalithic cultures in Deccan and South India. We found especially different burial practices, maybe cremation, maybe inhumation, maybe the pot burial system, maybe double burial system. We have different criterias where we found so the respective dead bodies that are being disposed by the people of megalithic cultures. So discuss different types of megalithic burial practices in India, and how far does the archaeological evidence From it helps us to know the religious beliefs and cultural practices. Let me tell you, this is another direct question. It's quite interesting to know whatever the practices which we found during megalithic cultures, even today, even today, in many cultures, the same traditions that are being continued. During excavations of megalithic cultures, we found grave goods. సమాధిలో లభించిన వస్తువులు అంటాం తెలుగులో. What does it indicates? Which indicates life after the death. Right? And even today, whenever you observe, even today, so we follow such kind of like the articles to be kept in and around dead body. Right? So, the direct question. The third one, Western Kshatrapas are known for their socio-economic contributions, particularly in trade, agriculture, and urbanization. Examine the statement. So the first question, section A, first question carries 20 marks, second question carries 15 marks, and third question also carries 15 marks. Kshatrapas. Kshatrapas, otherwise called as Shakas, otherwise called as Kshaharatas. So Western Kshatrapas, since they dominated the Western territories, maybe like the modern Rajasthan, modern Gujarat, and Western Deccan, like so northern Maharashtra and few parts of central India. So we call these rulers as Western Kshatrapas, or Shakas we call them. And Shakas played crucial role in trade and commerce. And though they maintained enemy relations with Shatavahanas, they also got involved in trade and commerce. Another direct question. So in section A, first question, map pointing. Second question, which has got like the three parts. And the third question, section A. The first, symbiotic relationships between Buddhist establishments, traders, artisan guilds, royal support led to a close proximity of religion, economy, and polity in the Mauryan and post-Mauryan periods. Examine the statement. In fact, the question has got a little bit tricky. The question says, the relationship between Buddhist rulers and trade and commerce. How Buddhist rulers, on one hand, promoted Buddhism, on the other hand, supported trade and commerce. In fact, there are so many communities which were tilted towards Buddhism from existing Vedic religion, especially of Vaishyas. And Vaishyas by profession, they were like traders, and by faith, they were Buddhists. So whenever they used to go for trade and commerce, and like they carried Buddhist principles. So this is how you have to write to this question. The second one, discuss the role of Buddhism in shaping the socio-religious landscape of the Mauryan Empire. This is another direct question and expected question which we have learned as part of classes. In fact, Mauryan society was a highly heterogeneous society, we call it. Highly heterogeneous society. Though Mauryan society was heterogeneous society, but we never found sectarian conflicts, nor we found religious conflicts. Reason being, Mauryan Ashoka came up with a social, ethical code of conduct, what we prefer to call it as Dhamma. And how did he come to Dhamma Annapudu? Yes, the credit goes to Buddhism. This is another direct question, you call it. And we also found like the religious toleration, the fantastic religious toleration in Mauryan Empire. For example, to make understand, Chandra Gupta Maurya was a Jain, and his son Bindusara was an Ajivika, and his son Ashoka was a Buddhist. Third one, discuss the evolution of state institutions and taxation system from Rigvedic period to later Vedic period. And this is another direct question. In fact, we have learned as part of classes, whenever you come across such kind of questions, even when someone observes the same question which we found in general studies mains, the differences between society and religion of early Vedic period and later Vedic period. Now, the evolution of state institution and taxation system from Rigvedic period to later Vedic period evolution of state institution. So, like, so we have on one hand early Vedic period, on the other hand later Vedic period. The question is very clear. The question is very clear. State institutions. The question is very clear. State institutions and taxation system annappu. For example, when we understand state, early Vedic period, we found republican form of government. In fact, it's a tribal republican. You also call democratic form of government. Now come to later Vedic period, monarchical form of government. Monarchical form of government. So obviously, you have to explain what were the elements which are associated with early Vedic period republican form of government, republican institutions, and what kind of changes made later Vedic Aryans to tilt monarchical forms of government. The first element, state. And the second element, taxes. Taxes. No doubt we found, say, taxes when we understand technical terms like bhaga followed by bali. Bhaga, some sort of share. Bhaga is a Sanskrit term, English version share. Bali, some sort of professional tax or income tax, modern income tax. We also found the same taxes in later Vedic period, that is bhaga and bali. But when we understand the nature of taxes between early Vedic period and later Vedic period, in early Vedic period, the respective taxes, they were voluntary in nature. They were not obligatory. Where in early Vedic period, between 1500 BC to 1000 BC. Now, by the time you go to later Vedic period, say 1000 BC to 600 BC, the respective taxes became compulsory, obligatory. And let me tell you, this is another question where where you have where you have direct information can be dumped. So the evolution of state institutions and taxation system, direct question. So I have to divide the page into two, that is state, how early Vedic state, and what kind of changes which took place later Vedic state, and taxation system. Right, it's all about section A, third question, and section A, fourth question. Highlight fourth one. So first question, highlight the contributions of Aryabhatta, Varahamihira, and Brahmagupta in the fields of astronomy and mathematics. I've been instructing the aspirants, especially like those who are writing with history optional. First, understand the question and have the habit of demarcating the question. Demark. First, you have to understand the question, what to be written, what not to be written, followed by demarcation of the question is important. When you demarcate the question, you can easily answer. Obviously, like that shouldn't be applied while you're writing an exam. The the content, the flow must be it should be written in flow. Right? So highlight the contributions of Aryabhatta, Varaha Mihira, and Brahmagupta. And these are the three famous Sanskrit scholars from ancient India, to be specific, Guptan period. And we did spend a lot of time during classes, like the respective the factual information associated with Aryabhatta. He was an astronomer come mathematician. After the same towards Varaha Mihir and even Brahmagupta, popularly called as Indian Newton. So the respective books and their like the theories and their contributions to be written, especially in the field in the fields of astronomy and mathematics. When it comes to astronomy, we have Aryabhatta. He wrote many books. The most magnum opus book happened to be Surya Siddhanta, heliocentric theory spoken about. And another famous book, which is written by same gentleman, Aryabhatta, by name like Arya Bhattiyam, which talks about different Ganitas. Ganita, Sanskrit and English version, like on the mathematics. Rekha Ganita, Bija Ganita, Anka Ganita, different elements. After the same towards Varaha Mihir, followed by Brahma Gupta. In fact, Brahma Gupta, like he spoke about gravitational force. Direct question. Fourth B, Examine the course of examine the course of Pallava Chalukya conflict between 6th and 8th centuries AD for 15 marks. And when it comes to this particular question, fourth B question, we have learnt during classes under the tag called geopolitical conflicts. Geopolitical conflicts. Geopolitical conflicts are nothing but political conflicts for the sake of geography. History taught us battles fought for fertile lands. So you have to use some technical terms. For example, Doab. In Persian, we call it Doab territories. Fertile lands, the lands which are located in between the two rivers. They're always fertile in nature. Now, with this background, when we understand the question, examine the role played, the question, right? Examine the course of Pallava Chalukyan conflicts annappudu, we have Badami Chalukyans. We have Badami Chalukyans ruling over Deccan and Pallavas ruling over South India when in post-Guptan age. The famous ruler from Badami Chalukyans by name Pulakeshin II and the famous ruler from Pallavan period, Pallavan dynasty by name Narasimha Varman I. In fact, we had other rulers. That is another story. According to history, geopolitical conflicts in Deccan was initiated by Pulakeshin II. On one hand, he defeated Harshavardhana of North India. On the other hand, he also defeated Pallavas of South India. To be specific, Mahendra Varman I. There was a battle called Battle of Pulalur, which we have learned during classes. So by defeating Pallavas, Mahendra Varman I, Badami Chalukyan ruler by name Pulakeshin II, he got command over KG Basin, Krishna Godavari Basin. So we found at least a half a dozen important battles, fields battles, to get command over KG Basin, Krishna Godavari Basin. We call the entire phenomenon as geopolitical conflicts, political conflicts for the sake of geography. So we have Battle of Pulalur, we have Battle of Manimangalam, and as you know, we have learnt as part of classes. So Pallavan ruler by name Narasimhavarman I, so defeated Pulakeshin II, assassinated Pulakeshin II, and got command over KG Basin, plundered Vatapi, the capital of Chalukyas, and assumed the title called Vatapi Kondan, the conqueror of Vatapi. It's a direct question as far as the Pallava Chalukyan conflicts are concerned. And last question as part of section A, fourth one. Examine the role played by the Agraharas in the promotion of education in the early medieval India. Another direct question. The role of Agraharas. We have learned during classes Agraharas, Brahmadeyas, Devadanas. As far as Agraharas are concerned, the lands which are given to Brahmins, right from the days of post-Mauryan age. To be specific, Shatavahanas. Shatavahanas introduced a tradition in India for the first time, that is donating lands to the Brahmins. And these lands over a period of time were given the tag called Agraharas. And we've also learned during classes, Agraharas were always given tax exemption. And Agraharas, the lands which are in the control of Brahmins, they, what we call promoted education. Obviously, Sanskrit education. For a period of time, by the time you go to Pallavas, you come across Ghatikas. Ghatikas, the educational institutions of Hindus, where religious educations that are being taught. This is another the direct question from ancient. So we were discussing history optional paper 1, which has got two major components, ancient Indian history and medieval Indian history. Now come to section B. Section B, fifth question. As far as fifth question is concerned, section B, Answer the following questions in about 150 words. Answer the following questions in about 150 words each, and each question carries 10 marks. Each question carries 10 marks. So in fifth question, we have five what we call say sub questions, you call them, and we don't have any kind of option here. We have to like write all questions. So, and each question carries 10 marks. The first one, illustrate the main features of SRA style temple architecture. It's a direct question. Let me tell you, which we have learnt as part of classes. For example, to make you understand, we have three major styles of temple architecture. Three major styles of temple architecture: Nagara style, otherwise called as Shikara style, Vesara style, and Dravidian style. Nagara style introduced by what we call say Guptans and further enlarged by Rajputs. When it comes to Vesara style, in fact, Vesara style is a mixture of both Nagara style and Dravidian style, and it was introduced by Badami Chalukyans and further developed by Rashtrakutas, followed by Kalyani Chalukyans. When it comes to Dravidian style of architecture, it was introduced by Pallavas and further new features added by Cholas. And the question is an exclusive related to Vesara style of architecture, and which we have learned during classes. Even you can go through class notes, you get at least half a dozen important features which are associated with Vesara style. As I was telling, Vesara style is a mixture of both Nagara style of North India, Dravidian style of what do we call South India. And after completion of features, obviously you have to write important temples, like built on the lines of Vesara style of architecture by Badami Chalukyans, little later Rashtrakutas and Kalyani Chalukyans, including like on the Kakatiyas also built temples. Right? Second one, evaluate the Firoz Shah Tughlaq's economic policies. This is another direct question. So we expected question from three political personalities of Delhi Sultanate, as I was telling on this day. Yes, three political personalities. One by name Alauddin Khilji from Khilji dynasty, Delhi Sultanate, and second personality Muhammad bin Tughlaq, and third personality Firoz Shah Tughlaq. So Firoz Shah Tughlaq, direct question. The third one, evaluate the contribution of Kalandariya to medieval Indian culture, which we have learned as part of Bhakti and Sufi silsilas, or Bhakti and Sufi movements. We have Chisti silsila, we have Shrovardi silsila, we have Kalandariya silsila. Obviously, the respective silsilas, maybe Chistis, maybe Suravardis, all promoted religious tolerance, sectarian tolerance. They also promoted what we call religious harmony, social harmony. Another one, discuss the main features of Malwa school of paintings with examples. In fact, Malwa school of paintings, it's like the distinctive school of paintings which we have learnt as part of art and culture. So these paintings got evolved right from the days of post-Mauryan age, maybe like the paintings from Ajanta and Ellora, a little later by Guptans, little later by Rajputs. And it was in early medieval age we found Malwa school of paintings. And finally, highlight the features of Portuguese colonial enterprise. Like Portuguese East India Company. Portuguese East India Company, the earliest European companies to be landed on Indian soil, and it got command over Indian commerce for about first 100 years, to be specific, from 15th century to 16th century, and little later, it started declining its commerce on Indian soil. Now come to section B. Section B. Fifth question. Sorry, section B. Sixth question. In sixth question, we have three options. So first question, analyze the contributions of Acharya Trimuvirte to Indian Vedanta. Vedanta, otherwise called, in fact, Upanishads, otherwise called as Vedanta. వేదాలకు అంతంగా ఉండే వాటిని వేదాంతము అంటాం. And we have learnt as part of classes, as part of especially Vedic civilization, we have Shruti literature and Smriti literature. In Shruti literature, we have Vedas, Aranyakas, Brahmanas, and Upanishads. Since Upanishads are like the fourth category in Smriti literature, so Upanishads, otherwise called as Vedantas, and you have to write Acharya Trimurti's philosophy. The second one, compare and contrast the position of Hindu and Muslim women in 13th and 14th centuries. And let me tell you, this is another direct question. The question on 50% comparison between Hindu women and women, the Muslim women, and what kind of the differences between Hindu women and Muslim women in terms of social status, in terms of position, in terms of the privileges enjoyed by the respective respective gender. And finally, sixth question, final. Examine the causes and consequences of peasants uprising during the reign of Aurangzeb. This is another direct question, let me tell you. So Aurangzeb, one of the famous rulers from Mughal Empire, reigned Mughal Empire from 1658 to 1707. The entire reign period broadly divided into two categories. So between 1658 to 1681, which we have learned as part of optional history classes, between 1658 to 1681, Aurangzeb was in North India, northern phase we call it. And between 1681 to 1707, Aurangzeb came down to Deccan. In fact, he did not return to North India because he died in Deccan itself. This is how we have learned. Now, the question is, my point is we have to have some sort of glimpse. Conceptual clarity to part a glimpse అనేది ఉండాలి. So the question is on examine the causes and consequences of peasants uprisings during Aurangzeb annappudu. So we have first phase. Between 1658 to 1681, there are so many communities organized revolts against Aurangzeb. One of the communities, Afghans organized revolts against Aurangzeb, followed by Rajputs organized revolts against Aurangzeb, followed by Jats organized revolts against Aurangzeb, followed by Satnamis also organized revolts against Aurangzeb, and Sikhs also organized against Aurangzeb. Now you need not write all revolts. You shall confine yourself to Jats and Satnamis because they are the ferocious peasant communities of North India. So why did they organize revolts and what were the consequences? The question is very simple. Direct question, let me tell you. And when it comes to consequences, when the respective communities organize revolts against Mughal nobility, Mughal officers, including Aurangzeb, what is the response of Aurangzeb? Aurangzeb made all efforts to suppress the movement. Or revolts, you call them. Right, it's all about section B. Section B, what we call say sixth question. Section B, seventh question. First, instead of bringing credit, the Ibadat Khana brought growing discredit to Akbar. Comment. In fact, this is direct question picked up from volume 2 of Satish Chandra. I have instructed you people to read 2 volumes of Satish Chandra, volume 1 by Satish Chandra, one of the notable historians of medieval India, and even volume 2. The same what we call statement which we found as part of Akbar we have learned. Same question. Instead of bringing credit, the Ibadat Khana brought a growing discredit to Akbar. It was in 1575 we have learned. It was in 1575 Akbar what we call constructed the prayer hall called Ibadat Khana. Between 1572 to 1582, Akbar held various debates and religious discussions with the monks of various religions. An outcome of debates and discussions at Ibadat Khana between 1575 to 82, he came up with a new code of conduct, what he or his followers prefer to call it as Deen-e-Ilahi. And Deen-Ilahi, even Vincent Arthur Smith also says, Deen-Ilahi, it's a foolish act of Akbar but not wisdomatic one. So second question, how did the Maratha guerrilla warfare tactics contribute to their military success against large and more established armies? This is another direct question. Though Marathas lacked prosperous economy, though Marathas lacked huge war equipments, but Marathas under the guidance of Shivaji got command over Deccan Muslim kingdoms on one hand, on the other hand Mughal armies. The credit goes to Marathas believed in guerrilla tactics. The credit goes to Maratha geography. Maratha geography forced Marathas to follow guerrilla tactics. That's what Jain Sarkar says. Jain Sarkar, one of the famous historians, he had a lot of research on Marathas, and he was also like the bitter critic of Mughals. To be specific, Aurangzeb, he says nature of Maharashtra, like the say the Western Ghats, you call it, the nature of Maharashtra, it's a kind of boon for Marathas. So Maratha geography forced Marathas to tilt towards not pitched battles but guerrilla tactics. This is again like no direct question. And finally, examine the role of Asaf Jahi dynasty in the political transformation of the state of Hyderabad. It's quite interesting to know. Very occasionally we get regional like no history questions, but this time we have got regional history question. It was in it was in 1724. It was in 1724. So between 1707 to 1857, we found later Mughals, otherwise called as a period of descendancy, right from Bahadur Shah I to Bahadur Shah II. So it was in 1722, Awadh came out from Mughal Empire, and 1724, Deccan came out from Mughal Empire. When I say Deccan, Deccan has got two capitals. Deccan Kingdom has got two capitals. The first capital, Aurangabad, and the second capital, Hyderabad. The question is related to examine the role of Asaf Jahi dynasty in the political transformation of the state of Hyderabad. It was Nizam ul Mulk, one of the officers of Mughals, to be specific, later Mughal phase. The gentleman, understood the inefficiency of Mughals, later Mughals, came down to Deccan and declared himself as an independent ruler in 1724. And earliest capital of Deccan Kingdom happened to be Aurangabad, and it was later got shifted to Hyderabad by Nizam ul Mulk. This is how Hyderabad state got developed, and it was ruled by Asaf Jahi dynasty. So Asaf Jahis were the masters of Deccan. We generally call it from 1724 to 1948. Right from Nizam ul Mulk, first Nizam we call it, right from Nizam ul Mulk to seventh Nizam by name Mir Usman Ali Khan, Operation Polo. That's what we have learned in the previous sessions. It's all about seventh, section B, seventh question, and finally section B, eighth question, which has got once again three options. Option A, uh, say first question you call it under section B, eighth question. Discuss the contributions of Bahmani sultans to the development of Indo-Islamic architecture. Another direct question. So when Muhammad bin Tughlaq was a ruler of when Muhammad bin Tughlaq was a ruler of Delhi Sultanate, we found many kingdoms came out from Delhi Sultanate. One among them was Bahmani Sultanate in 1347, Gulbarga as a capital. In fact, Bahmani Sultanate had two capitals, we generally say. One is Gulbarga phase and followed by Bidar phase. And sultans of Bahmani, they what we call say belong to Shia sect of Islam, and they made enormous contributions to Deccan culture, maybe in terms of literature, maybe in terms of art forms, maybe in terms of architecture. As far as architecture is concerned, monuments are concerned. So they built so many what we call say monuments, both maybe secular monuments and maybe religious monuments. All these monuments were built in the lines of Indo-Islamic style of architecture, and which we have learnt as part of Delhi Sultanate, the features of Indo-Islamic style of architecture. Elagite manam say we have Nagara style in North India, Vesara style in Deccan, and Dravidian style in South India. Apply the same towards by the time you go to medieval India, we found a composite architecture called Indo-Islamic style of architecture. How we have learnt one fact: Dravidian style introduced by Pallavas, further developed by Cholas. Apply the same towards Indo-Islamic style introduced by Sultans of Delhi, further developed by Mughals. Second one, evaluate the impact of the Third Battle of Panipat on the political economy of 18th century India. This is direct question, which we have learned, as part of optional history classes. In fact, this is the patent question of even general studies mains. Panipat put Panipat brought empire changing what we call say events in the history of India, because Panipat was a place where we found three historic battles. We have learned the first battle of Panipat, 1526, between Babur forces and Ibrahim Lodi forces. Outcome: Ibrahim Lodi forces got defeated. Outcome or significance of Panipat, the first which we have learned, that is That is like, the say Delhi Sultanate was replaced by Mughal Sultanate. 1556, Second Battle of Panipat between Hemuraj forces and Akbar forces. Outcome: Hemuraj forces shattered to pieces, and Akbar revived, or Akbar like got back his territories. And the third one, 1761, 1761, the battle fought between Afghans and Marathas. Outcome: Marathas shattered. And I have instructed the even general studies students and optional students, do watch a movie called Panipat, Sanjay Dutt, Arjun Kapoor, and all that. The best way to get the knowledge, because Panipat is one of the Bollywood movies related to Battle of Panipat the Third, which fought in the year 1761. V.S. Smith and other famous historians opine that the fruits of Panipat enjoyed by English East India Company, maybe like on the political fruits and even economic fruits. That's what the question is. Direct question. And finally, section B, eighth low C question. Examine the process of urbanization caused by the establishment of European trading companies in India. This is a little bit like, say non-conventional question, you call it. So the remaining all questions happen to be conventional in nature. Remaining all questions happen to be conventional in nature. This is non-conventional. In fact, as far as urbanization is concerned, traditionally, which we have learned during classes, so first urbanization, Indus Valley civilization. Second urbanization, pre-Mauryan age, otherwise called as age of Mahajanapadas. The third urbanization, Mughal Empire. But recent, what we call say trends, convey that urbanization from the advent of European onwards, we have settlements. For example, to make you understand, so we found five European companies on Indian soil. That is Portuguese East India Company, followed by Dutch East India Company, followed by English East India Company, followed by Danish East India Company, and finally French East India Company. So all these respective companies, they developed settlements. You call them factories. You call them like, say headquarters. Take an example of English East India Company. English East India Company developed three. English East India Company developed three headquarters: one on western coast, that is Bombay, and two on eastern coast, Bengal and Madras. You also call Calcutta. And these three today, what we call metropolitan cities. Metropolitan cities, like they were developed by European companies. To be specific, English East India Company. A little bit a non-conventional question, you call it. So these are the respective questions which we found in paper one. So when we understand, like said, the general nature of the question paper, even with general studies knowledge, one can answer the optional history question. So optional history is nothing but it's an extension of GS syllabus. So the questions are very direct, and even uh, with like so I won't say meager knowledge we can answer, but like one who has conceptual clarity, one who has a little bit command over, to be specific on map pointing, one can easily answer. With this, we'll have a pause. In the next session, we'll discuss paper 2. Thank you.